Once again, I was doom scrolling the internet and I came across Albert and Max, and guess what they made? Big Mac Steakburger. Like what? How do you come up with that? And with 75 million views on this steak burger, I'm just wondering, is this genius or is it a big fail? I guess there's only one way to find out. With a thick, juicy steak with a perfect crust, a delicious burger sauce, and of course some cheese on top just to finish it off. And they always make it look so good and so delicious. And I just wonder, can I do it too? And how does it work? How do you get it as perfect as they get it? I just love these short videos on food because they give me so many ideas of what to cook next, or maybe how to change a technique or develop my skills even further. But every now and then a video comes along and your mind can't just comprehend what's going on. So when I was laying in my sunbed just scrolling away and watching that video, I was just wondering, a steak recipe and a burger recipe mixed together to turn the Big Mac into the Steak Mac? Wow, is that really gonna work? And how does that work? How? So now I have this itch and it needs to be scratched. I wanna figure out how this is gonna work. I got so many questions. We better get started. So my plan is just to take that video and take it step by step. So we're gonna do exactly the same things they do and then just, well, figure it out step by step. This video goes so fast. I need to figure out how to keep up with that. Okay, let's start with what I'm going to do. Making a sauce, step 1. So I think I found all of the ingredients. It's a bit tricky because they show you something different in the video than what actually goes into their pot, but I think I figured it out. They got ketchup, they got mayonnaise, they got onion, and they got pickles, sliced pickles. But there's something about the onion that you need to know before you get started. They use this type of onion. And this is not a regular yellow onion. This is a sweet onion, and there's a lot of difference. This is the onion that they put on burgers raw, and if you eat it, it's very enjoyable. But if you use a yellow onion instead, which looks a lot like this, it's gonna be very, very intense. So they chose like a less intense option, and that makes a lot of sense because they put it in raw. All right, let's start with the mayonnaise. I think they do about 50-50 mayonnaise ketchup. A cup of mayonnaise, a cup of ketchup. Then I'm going to add half the onion because I think that is the amount that they use. And then a couple of slices of dill pickles. Now let's blend it up and see if it looks exactly like theirs does. Quality check. Whoa, this is way better than I expected. I expected it to be good, but it's a lot better than good. This is really, really good. This is a must-try recipe, and it's not even a recipe. Definitely try this. They're using the ribeye steak. And there's a thing with a ribeye steak where you have the eye in the center and then over on top you have the rib cap. And it looks absolutely beautiful. It tastes freaking amazing. But for our burger, we want to slice it and then put it on the burger bun and just eat it and bite into it. But if you have the rib cap, it's going to be separate. But the thing is, Albert and Max are only using the eye of the ribeye to get those slices. So they're throwing away the fat and the ribeye cap. I don't think they're really throwing away. Probably, yeah, more likely they're just eating that as a side thing. But I want to make it make sense, and therefore I chose the entrecôte or the striploin steak to use, because that's going to have less waste, and in the end that means more meat on my sandwich. This is an absolute beauty of an entrecôte, and it comes from my neighbor's cow, which is a crossbreed between a Holsteiner dairy cow and a Black Angus cow, which means we're going to get a bigger steak and it's going to have the intermuscular fat and the flavor that I'm looking for. So I cut this out from the whole section of the striploin so that I have the exact same size and the thickness as Max and Albert do. And for seasoning, they're just using a little bit of salt and pepper. That's it. So that's the exact same thing that I'm doing. A little bit of fine sea salt, a little bit of ground pepper. They're only seasoning one side, but I'm assuming that they're also seasoning the other side because the steak is rather thick steak. So yeah, it kind of needs the extra seasoning, I think. Let's make sure to get all that seasoning off the board and good to go. So they're putting the steak in some form of non-stick pan, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of non-stick pans. I rather use a cast iron skillet, and of course I'll be using the PitmasterX cast iron skillet. This is not just any cast iron skillet, this is a hand polished skillet, and the surface is so smooth that it is a mirror finish. Look at it. You can literally see everything behind the camera. That is how smooth this surface is, so no way anything will stick to this bottom. See that? That is what I call a mirror finished. See that? I got my burner on and I'm going to let the pan come up to temperature. Now this is a trick that almost no chef shows you, but you want to get your pan nice and warm, so you're going to leave it on for at least about 3 to 4 minutes so the heat can spread out evenly. And also another thing is, don't turn on the heat like insane. I know a lot of people do this. They just put the pan on the stove and start cooking right away. They want to put on maximum heat, want to get that pan nice and hot. That is when the fire alarm goes off. Don't do that. So to cook my steak, I'm going to use a little bit of clear oil because I see Max the Meat Guy using a clear oil. I'm going to do the same thing. It's probably a sunflower oil or peanut oil. See that the pan is nice and hot, and then put the steak in the pan and sear it. And to maximize the contact between the pan and the steak, I'm putting on a steak weight with a little bit of aluminum foil, well, so that I don't have to clean it up again. But that is going to give the maximum amount of contact, and that's going to give me the best crust. You want to flip the steak regularly to make sure you get the best even crust and cook the steak evenly at the same time. And of course I'm using my chef temp thermometer to keep track of the temperature inside the steak, because I also want to add the last step that we need. We need butter, we need garlic, and we need rosemary. Max and Albert are starting out with that butter. That goes in the pan first. Then they're adding rosemary and garlic to it. I'm going to baste the steak with butter a couple of times just to make sure that it cooks nicely and that we're going to have the butter flavor all over that steak, because it makes the flavor of the steak even better. Once the steak hits 50 degrees Celsius, I'm going to put it on the board and let it rest. During the resting period, the core temperature of my steak went a little higher than I wanted to, but today is a hot day, so I should have taken that into consideration. It's about, well, 5 to 10 degrees hotter today than it normally is, and my steak went up 2 degrees more than it normally does. And I think I was lucky that it didn't went up even further. I should have stopped earlier. The first thing that I noticed about the bun, that it's toasted. And the other thing that I noticed about the bun is that it's 3 parts of bun. So it's the Big Mac basically has a bottom, a center, and a top bun. So I used the same type of bun that Max and Albert did. One I cut in half. So I used the centerpiece of one bun and the top and bottom of the other parts and toasted them in the cast iron pan, soaking up the butter, the seasoning, and the flavors of the steak. So these buns are already going to taste delicious. Now I know Max and Albert didn't say anything about that, but I just don't want to miss out on that flavor. I just realized Albert and Max are not saying anything in this video. Let's continue with the buildup of the burger. Burger bun, sauce, lettuce, steak, cheese, burger bun, sauce, steak, cheese, lettuce, pickles, and top bun. And that's the order they built their burger. I'm actually not too unhappy about the way it looks. It looks quite like theirs. My steak is cooked a little further, but in general the idea is the same, and now we know what not to do and what to do. Well, at least the same look. But what does it taste like? And is it any good? The Big Mac steak sandwich. There we go, guys. Wow, that is seriously good. Honestly, I'm not disappointed. So my plan really was to do my version of this steak burger, the steak Big Mac. And I'm now starting to worry about that plan, because honestly, the flavors were way better than I expected. And I just, in my mind, I could just easily improve on this, because it's like, well, it's just a burger, and it's not just a burger, it's also like a McDonald's burger. So, but tasting the flavors, I'm really starting to worry that how can this be better? Because it was really good. You know, even if the cheese didn't melt, the steak wasn't cooked to perfection, it still tasted really, really good. And now I have to improve on it. Well, not really improve on it, but make my own version of it. And which of course in my mind could be better, but I don't know if it can be better. However, I'm going to try. And I have a plan. Of course, I'm using the exact same steak that I used for the Max and Albert steak McBacon. Ooh. And I already seasoned it with some salt 4 hours ago, because that is the optimum time to season your steak. Not 24 hours before, because then you're basically brining, but seasoning 4 hours beforehand makes the steak a lot better. The flavors boost even more without changing the flavor of the steak. The next thing that I did is fire up my barbecue. I'm using the Napoleon Kettle Grill Pro. I'm putting in a little bit of charcoal, started up the fire starter. And once the charcoal's lit, I'm putting in the grill grates and closing the lid. Dialing in the temperatures to smoke at around 120 degrees Celsius. I just took the steak out of the fridge after 4 hours and look at it. The oxidation together with the salt are working together. Come, take a close look. Working together to create what is the ultimate flavor. So I'm going to let this come up to room temperature while I prepare the rest of our ingredients. I think I got myself into a little bit of trouble because the plan was to make the Albert and Mac's recipe and then just tweak it and make it my own and, well, let you guys decide which one was better. And of course, my ego led me to think that I could make a better version of it because, well, there are some things that are obviously wrong with it. You know, cheese doesn't melt and it's a lot of McDonald's style food, which could be better, right? But after tasting that burger, that steak burger, it was so good. And it's somehow, it kind of like, it's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a little bit dirty. So if you improve on it, you're just making a snob version of it. But you guys decide if I improved on it or, well, if it cannot be improved. I'm gonna start with making my own herb butter. I got a little bit of butter. I got some parsley, fresh from the garden, a little bit of fresh thyme, and some chives, also from the garden. And look, they're even making their own flowers. Isn't that kind of cool? And you can eat the flowers actually, so that's kind of cool too. So I don't know, I never did it, so I'll try. I was a little intense. You can eat them. That's a bit too much. Just one bite. I'm going to add it to some butter, and I'm also going to add the PitmasterX Texas seasoning because it has all the seasoning that I need for my compound butter. Okay, here comes the challenging part. Because the sauce was so good from Max and Albert, it's going to be a challenge to make it even better. A little bit of ketchup, a little bit of mayonnaise, about 50-50, 2 teaspoons of the PitmasterX Classic Barbecue seasoning. And instead of using whole pickles, I'm just going to use a little bit of the pickle juice. I'm also going to use some French mustard. Just wondering, like the vacuum trick where you hit it with a knife and then... So obviously I'm supposed to break the vacuum with that. And it kind of like... Oh, it worked! A teaspoon of French mustard and mix it up, and hopefully this is going to be better than Max and Albert's, but it's going to be a tall order. All right, there we go. My personal opinion, the mustard and a little bit of barbecue seasoning just makes it a little bit better. The moisture from the pickle juice really brings home the sauce. I'm going to use one bun and cut the top and the bottom off the same way Max and Albert did, and then take another bun and cut it in half so I have 3 parts of a bun. The difference is that I'm going to take some onion and slice it real thin, I mean paper thin. So I'm going to be grilling my steak, and basically it is now dried because of the salt, but I got a little trick to make sure that it grills right. I'm going to take a little bit of oil and rub that onto my steak so that once I start searing it, I can make the steak non-stick, but it's also going to help the crust to become even better. Because with putting the salt on in the beginning, basically the outside dried out, but now putting a little bit of oil on top of it too, is going to make the crust even better. I'm going to take my steak and put it over indirect heat on the grill. So I've got one direct heat side and I got one indirect heat side, which is basically the colder side of the barbecue, and that is where the steak is warming up. Because even though it's a hot day outside, it doesn't matter, the steak is really cold on the inside because remember, it's been in the fridge for 4 hours and that means it's about 2 degrees Celsius inside that steak. Now I needed to get it up to at least 20 degrees Celsius before I start grilling it. Another thing that I'm doing different than Albert and Max is, this is the cheese that they used. Like a really nice plasticky thing that if you open it up, it just melts everywhere, and that's what they used. I'm going to use this, which basically is a little bit more cheddar inside the cheese. This has basically got nothing to do with cheddar, but this has actually got something to do with cheddar. It's still not a great cheese, let's be honest. For normal eating, you wouldn't eat this. However, on burgers, it's like a magic. It's a slice of magic, and hopefully this is gonna make my steak Big Mac a little better than Max and Meat guys. Time to take the steak from the indirect heat side, placing it over to the direct heat side, and start working on that crust. So maybe this is crazy, but I'm not gonna rest this steak. I'm just gonna put it on the board and directly start slicing into it. That is going to make the difference that I'm looking for. And another thing that I'm gonna do is take the slices as thin as I possibly can, just to make sure they're gonna be enjoyable eats once on the burger. The compound butter is gonna go on. I'm gonna use a little bit of the warmth of the steak to let it melt. And I'm gonna put the slices of cheese on. I know I'm turning it into one big mess, but keep watching. There's method behind this madness. Just gonna go in, work that cheese up. You see what I did there? I just made sure that every slice of that steak got covered in molten cheese and melted butter. And that is going to make a difference. Now let's build up that steak Big Mac. Thin sliced onion, lettuce, slices of steak. You can see that the steak is coated with flavor. And look at that monster. Now I must admit that slice of cheese make it look a little bit better on the steak Big Mac. And of course I cooked the steak a little less, so that means it's a little bit more pink inside. Makes it looks a lot better from the start. But all that doesn't matter if it doesn't taste good. But the real question is, does it taste better than Max and Albert's their steak Big Mac? Only one way to find out. It's packed full with flavor and it tastes really good. It's super flavorful, it's juicy, it's really a great burger. And the funny thing is that fake cheese, that really plastic fake cheese, it adds that kind of Big Mac flavor to the burger that this one is lacking. But I don't know if that's a bad thing. Even though it doesn't give it that fast food vibe, this is more of like a fresh vibe. It's totally different. It is basically like this is no longer a steak Big Mac. So if the goal is to make a steak Big Mac, choose the one from Max and Albert. If you want something that's lighter and fresher in flavor, take this one. But honestly, love to know what you guys think. What could I have done to make this even better and like elevate the game of Max and Albert, even if it's possible. This is like the weirdest one I've done so far, where I can't seem to figure it out what the sweet spot is. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comment down below. Until then, eet smakelijk and keep on grilling.